2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello everybody and welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name is Eric and tonight we will be taking you to cyberspace, aka where Joe went to college.
That's right. I programmed half of this movie.
I'll be your host for this evening. First up tonight, coming to us from New York City, New York. I have a feeling we may be adding to his mythos tonight and I'm very excited. Please welcome one Mr. John Schnars to the show.
Hello, Eric.
Yes. We have to talk, John, about your shirtless, lubed up lawn mowing escapades later. But before we do that,
I usually wear a shirt, but sometimes maybe not.
Before we do that, next up on the show, please welcome this guy. He drinks beer. He lives in Chicago, rocking the flannel tonight. Please welcome Joe.
That's me. That's my name. That's where
Joe.
I live.
Next up tonight, she is the high priestess of books and smart things at Bloody Good Horror. Please welcome our resident witch, Cece, to the show.
Hello.
Coming to you from Hotlanta, Georgia.
It was 70 degrees today, so yes, it is very hot.
That's the best. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Alakazam.
Next up on the show tonight, coming to us from Indiana, our resident vapor. Please welcome Casey.
Hi, everybody.
If you ever hear a weird, like, gargling sound in the background, it's his vape machine.
It's just his vapes.
Yeah. Blowing sick clouds in the background, you know?
You betcha.
Like you do.
I'm going pro.
And last up tonight, you might call it a big surprise, some of you. Maybe not. It's been a little bit here, but I want you to please give a very warm welcome to, let's see, he's the webmaster, the web designer at BloodyGoodHorror.com. Webmaster B is maybe my favorite nickname for him.
Web Beaver. I thought.
Yeah, the Web Beaver.
The Web Beaver.
The B stood for beaver, I assumed.
No, that's an old Married with Children reference, John. I think.
Oh,
you know, Webmaster.
My
B.
bad. Jesus.
Please welcome Mark to the show.
Well, Bundy.
Yeah, exactly.
You didn't even give him your the brother introduction.
Well,
You know,
Stop it, Webmaster B.
I'm a little upset that you didn't refer to me as a flannel surprise, which is what I was
it's
hoping.
fine. Mark, do you want to introduce yourself to anyone who's listened to the show in the last year?
No, I think my stunning performance will speak for itself.
Awesome. Well, why don't we just jump right into here, Mark? Do you want to talk about why you're with us tonight?
Well, I mean, typically, for some time in the past 10 years, I would have been here because I was on the show.
Typically, that's true.
But if you are new, I probably sound a little bit foreign to you, even though Eric and I sound exactly the same. But yeah, my attendance has been spotty, to say the least, I guess, since for the greater part of like the last year and a half. And you know, I thought about it quite a bit, and I had a pretty long conversation with Eric, and I've kind of talked to everybody here, and I think it's time for me to officially retire from the podcast. I'll still be around. I'll still be doing website stuff. I'll still be on Slack and Twitter, and still be a big part of everything that's going on. But really, this is just kind of about unsetting the expectation that I'll be here every week. You know, it's the best timing, I think, that we could have worked out, and that I was really happy to be a part of episode 500. I was really happy to be a part of the latest spectacular we did, which is just a massive epic proportions. So yeah, I mean, it's, you know, obviously very bittersweet, but I really wanted to make sure that I was here for kind of one last official episode, and that it would be something fun. So initially I was thinking it'd be the year-end show, and scheduling didn't work out for that. So this is why we're setting off staff picks. So I got to subject people to one more fucking terrible movie, because if you are a longtime listener, you will know that my staff picks are notoriously awful and sometimes masochistic. So I'm pretty happy to have kind of picked this for my last go around.
Well, we will definitely miss you, Mark. You've obviously been a huge part of the history and the founding of this site way back to literally when you were in high school and I was forcing you into indentured servitude. and all the way up to the present day. And like you said, you'll still be on Slack. You'll still be doing website stuff. All this really means is just one less person I have to run my dumb ideas by when I want to do them on the show.
I mean, you'll still run them by me, I'm sure.
Maybe.
And also, much like Lawnmower Man, I will forever be an inhabitant of the internet.
Exactly.
So.
This is right. This is you just you're crossing the barrier.
It's like even more appropriate than I.
But
we
thought it'd be fun to just have like one last hoorah, do a little staff peg, do something goofy, and I'm pretty excited to talk about this. Did I even say it? I didn't even say it. We're reviewing The Lawnmower Man tonight, as in
Lawnmower Man,
starring Pierce Brosnan's chest hair
oh
and Jeff Fahey. Is that the guy's name?
Yeah, his bangs.
His bangs and his just glistening pectorals. Yeah.
I just wanted to comment that I think that was the
frosted
longest
tips almost like there's the one.
I think that was the longest anyone got to speak on the podcast without Eric interrupting them. So congratulations to Mark.
Yes, setting records.
I have to give Adam, who's watching the live stream, has probably the best comment of everyone. He said, "This is bad Newells."
Terrible.
Nobody? Newells?
Oh, no.
Newells?
He and you should be ashamed of yourself.
Yes,
You
for
know what?
repeating that.
It's even more amazing.
Whatever.
Somehow in 32 years of life, I've literally never heard that. So that was good.
That is true, actually. That is true.
Bad Newell's Bears.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's been a long time since I saw a movie that I was so simultaneously angry about watching and excited about talking about on the show. Like,
I'm so excited.
that's such a good sweet spot sometimes where you're like, I'm so fucking mad he's making me watch this right now, but this show's going to be a lot of fun.
We should also mention, we'll talk about it because we'll probably get into the production a little bit. We watched the director's cut of this movie, which is over 2 hours and 20 minutes long.
Dude,
I have a God's joke that was.
I have a
embedded
whole thesis prepared on director's cuts tonight, so we can talk about it.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to get into
Do you
it.
want me to talk my reasoning for picking it now or closer to the review?
No,
What do you think?
let's wait till we get into it.
All right.
We got some housekeeping stuff to do. So first up, I wanted to mention this: the weekend of the January 27th, there's going to be a new Tweet with BGH. The new class, they are continuing to work their way through the Purge series, and they're going to be doing Purge Election Year.
Haven't seen it. Maybe I should check it out.
Did you not see it? Oh, you should. I mean, it's not as
Yeah.
it's. I don't think it's as good as the one we just did, Purge, whatever.
No, I mean the new
First
one
Purge.
is definitely.
But there's some real
one of the
crazy.
best.
There's some real crazy shit at the end where they're in a church and the founding fathers or the new founding fathers are doing some really bizarre, like, weird capitalism religious
religion
ritual.
stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It has its moments for sure. So yeah, check that out. You can follow.
Has its moments.
You can follow the new class, Sophie, Jason, Spencer. Those guys do those Tweet with BGHs. I think Evan joins in too. Usually watch along and tweet along. Good times had by all. And real quick, I had a dispatch from Andy, John, from the website. Do you remember? Do you remember Andy?
I do.
Just a beautiful, succulent beard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he is the
Succulent. I don't know if that's the right word.
No, I'm going with succulent.
He's Brosnan-esque in his.
Well, he has. Yeah, he actually
hair
has.
disposition.
Yeah, he has.
Is that
chest
called
hair.
her suit?
It might be.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Oh, I won.
I feel like it's a little more like Lawnmower Man-esque. Like
We
with
can
his
talk about
flippy
it.
hair
I'm not
and
sure
things.
I've ever been so like sexually confused because on the one hand, Pierce Brosnan is just such a
You went to college, right, Eric?
he's such a beautiful man, but his chest hair is revolting. It's like it looks thick and like slimy. Do you know what I mean?
What are you trying to say, Eric?
I'm just saying I'm conflicted, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I'm conflicted about my decision to continue to wear an undershirt. I thought about like really just not for the show.
Like my favorite outfit in the movie actually was like he had
Yeah, this movie was like 2 hours and 20 minutes. I couldn't tell you what his chest hair looked like. I don't.
Are you kidding?
like,
It's in
feel
every
like
other scene, dude.
That was something a lot of people.
What a-
There was a lot of him.
I
Joe-
wanted to give you enough
could
like
not look
cool,
away.
Joe,
I wanted
you
to
and
give you some
I
like cool down time between chest hair scenes so that you weren't like rabidly aroused.
Joe, I don't want shit from you because you and I have spent entire episodes talking about Brad Pitt, so I don't want to hear it.
Well,
So there you go.
look, all right.
There you
Here's
go.
Brosnan's a nice guy. He's no fucking Brad Pitt, all right?
So Andy sent a dispatch in from bloodygoodhorror.com. He said Luke has a review up of Bird Box. Have you heard of this film, Schnars?
Unfamiliar, but Do tell.
And also Escape Room. Sophie reviewed Monster Party. I think Monster Party, that was a sick NES game, Mark. Remember that? You're muted, bro.
Mark's already cut out.
Adam, the
He's done. He's done.
there you go. Hey, Mark, do you remember Monster Party for the Nintendo Entertainment
I sure
System?
do. It was
Oh,
a great
cool.
game, yeah.
Cool. Adam, who's the resident BGH lawyer, has a new In Extremis. That's where he writes about horror movies and how they obtain to obscure laws. And he writes about The Children from 2008 and how the law would handle murderous children. And Colin's latest Screams Off Screen, he writes about Cannibal Holocaust. That's like a little behind-the-scenes kind of retrospective thing that Colin has been doing. So there you go, bloodygoodhorror.com.
Are we not going to talk about how the book club is, back in
Yeah, well,
back
listen,
alive? It's been
you gotta send me
Are we
show notes.
not?
You gotta send me show notes before the show sees here. I don't know these things.
Yeah,
Well,
you
we've
could
done.
not
I mean,
expect them to
the
know that.
first. I know the first book is for February, so you can go to our Goodreads page or get to our Goodreads page from bloodygoodhorror.com. But we took the month of January to get settled, so it's really starting in February.
Love it.
I'm
Yeah,
finally
'cause
reading
you were so
last year's
active in
book.
December and before that.
You know what? I don't have time for you, Joe.
Seems like you don't have time for books either.
I don't. So that's why it's starting in February, asshole.
Listen, we're excited. We're excited.
CC wanted to take a break after the rigged pace of 2 episodes last year.
Oh God.
Oh man.
Need to cool down, guys.
I was kind of expecting Joe to come for me. This is
I was
a-
gonna
this
say,
is a
no, we
surprise.
agreed to go after Mark, but
You just wait. You
Here
just
we
wait,
are.
Mark. All right.
I
The end is
got it.
I'm gonna have to crawl through everyone's legs while they paddle my behind at the end. Is that
Speaking
how
of
this is gonna go?
speaking of Joe coming in hot, Joe, please tell us what we are drinking tonight.
Beer guts.
Oh, beer guts. I mean, before we get into this week's pick, which is gonna get you a little verklempt, I'm gonna tell you right now. I do want to say I listened to the Eric show on Friday
Oh,
when I
shit.
went out for a run, and I want to like I really enjoyed it. Actually, it was more entertaining than I think I thought it was gonna be. And like personally, Eric, I was touched is probably the right word. I didn't do or like set up the BGH 5K for all the recognition. But when you said, I don't know how this thing got started, I think maybe it was
No,
Joe.
I listen.
I really like it. Just like I don't do it for the recognition or like the people saying I did a good job, but like that, like really like misty while I was running. It felt good.
Listen, I got around to giving you full credit, Joe. All right, don't give me shit.
Yeah, you're wrapped up with. I think it may have been Joe, and we just let him run.
And
with it.
also because it's you, I can't tell if you genuinely enjoyed it or if you were just using that as a setup to then rip on me. So it's unclear.
Yeah, the entire thing has been a setup for this moment.
So hey, Joe, what are we drinking tonight?
Yeah, so this week I opted to not actually pick a beer that matches up to this movie, other than the fact that it's one that Mark and I have enjoyed on many occasions. Potentially when they first released it, even. I'm not positive, but my pick this week is from the fine folks at Revolution Brewing here in Chicago, Illinois, and this is their Fist City. Wah, wah, wah. Which is, I think, Mark, one of your favorites, if I remember correctly, that Revolution puts out, and one that Mark and I went on a mandate, like literally like an actual mandate, because we ate dinner at what we discovered later was a gay bar before going to see Andrew WK in concert. And it was Revolution's, I think, 2-year anniversary, or no, a lot more than that, some sort of anniversary, but they had premiered this beer. Mark and I were both big fans. It's a pale ale, but they really up the malt on this, so it's not a ton of like hops. I compare it to almost like an Arrogant Bastard, if you've ever had that from Stone. Like it's a really good balance of the hops and the malt.
Oh, is that the,
only
other
comes
Mark,
in
the other Mark connection?
Yeah.
Comes in at only about 5.5% alcohol, so not super high. But it's interesting. I actually met one of the brewers once, and he was talking about this beer. It's more expensive than their like hoppier beers, hoppier as in like flavor, because of like all the ingredients they put into this to give it like all these different flavors, and it's like super complex. So it's one of my favorites too. I definitely pick it up anytime and get my hands on it. Revbrew.com is their website, and yeah, little tip of the hat to Mark there for you.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, so 2 notes. One, we served this beer at my wedding by special request. And my second note, which, Joe, thank you for dedicating your beer to me. And a very appropriate story. Joe bought a bunch of Fifth City before the BGH 10-year and sent me a picture of it, and then everyone drank it by the time I got to the house. So that's another memory associated with it. But yeah, I mean, I love that beer, and that's sweet. Thanks.
Shut up! You shut your face.
Don't look at me. Don't look at me.
There you go. Thank you for that, Joe.
That's done. Yeah.
It's a beer recommendation, something you get here every week on Bloody Good Horror. Let's take a quick break so that we can discuss The Lawnmower Man.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. From the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
And we're back. John Schnars.
Yes, sir.
How long did it take you to be jacked into virtual reality before you became so smart?
So true story. When I was in college, I took a class on feature writing, like for magazines, like magazine features, and I wrote a feature about the Virtual Reality Research Center at UNC Chapel Hill, and I actually like got to go. I jacked into the like 2003 virtual reality system they had.
College, am I right?
You did what now?
He jacked in.
Oh yeah. Well, you asked me how long it took to.
Was
jack
that in
into
any way like
that.
the sex scene in this movie?
It was substantially different,
Did
but
you-
similar in some ways.
Did you pin someone to the floor with cyber goo?
No, no.
Now,
I view
did
it as
you-
a miss, actually, that I did.
did you jack yourself in, or did you have one of like new recruits in your fraternity jack you in? And then when you leave, did he have to jack you off to get out? Or?
And does he also wear white gloves like you did in the Duke Library? That's a question. that I
Good
have.
question.
There's no white. There's no white. Yeah.
No, I guess they would be
They
like
were after John got done with them.
too far.
Can you cut his mic? Or...
So
That's
virtual.
a semen reference, John.
Hey John,
Yes.
please bring us the word of the day. I swear to God, if it's cyber, you're fired.
No, so I pinged Mark about 20 minutes before the show, and I told him that he could have the honor of. I had a word, but I told him he could have the honor of picking a word. And
Or wasn't it?
though it was slightly spoiled by Casey earlier, today's word is hirsute.
Oh,
sorry.
Wow.
Yeah, same
Nice
brain
work.
apparently. Hirsute has a very simple meaning. The meaning is hairy. I'm dead serious. That is the only thing that it says. So yeah, hairy. It comes from the Latin hirsutus, which I think probably just means hairy.
I
Just
think
hit-
that actually means a suit of hair.
Right.
Is what that
Suit of
means.
hair. Yeah.
Yeah, hirsute.
And was that?
Hirsute. That's a good spelling contest word.
You got an
know?
origin on that
Yeah.
bad boy?
Well, the origin is Latin, earliest 17th century, from the Latin hirsutus.
Nice.
I was not kidding.
Hirsutumus
Hirsute
Maximus.
was,
Like when you run a
Hirs-
gorilla costume, like a hirsute.
Hirsute was also my Twitter name when I was campaigning for Hillary back in the last election.
Hirsute, huh?
Jesus
Hirsute
Christ.
bros for Hillary.
I don't think
John,
this is on because I don't hear you guys laughing. I don't.
Oh,
John,
we're not.
John, what
We're
is
not
that?
Is there
At
a
all.
weird delay?
John, what does that word have to do with this movie?
Well, I mean, we were joking about it earlier. You get a lot of Pierce Brosnan chest. Honestly, I'm gonna do a Google search for Pierce Brosnan and Lawnmower Man just to prove to Joe, because like 50% of the results will probably be of him drinking. So there's a lot of scenes in this film where he is recording an audio diary, and every time he's drinking bourbon, and he's topless for just like
He's-
no reason. I guess that's how he unwinds.
Sometimes when he has a top on, it's just open, so you can see it anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of bourbon,
My favorite, also, like, you know what's so funny to me in this
Oh,
movie,
but
John?
what?
It's so funny to me in this movie, and then we'll move on. Like, he starts smoking a cigarette in his bedroom, like in bed with his wife. I just feel like because you can't smoke places anymore, when I see somebody smoking inside in a movie, I'm disgusted, and I'm just like, you are an animal.
well, she
Well, the
does
scene
comment.
where he like checks into the hotel and he's smoking a cigarette and he like there's an ashtray sitting on the counter. He like runs up to the counter and mashes it in the counter. I was like, holy shit, that's what working at a hotel was like. That's terrible.
People constantly just
for the
stuffing out
record, I
cigarettes.
don't. For the record, I don't even vape in bed.
Right, and the
Thank
vape isn't.
God.
Yeah,
How responsible of you.
it's great. Anyway, John Schnars, thank you for that. Please, before we get into, like, all the details of the movie, I need a little bit of like background for this, because something we were
Yeah.
talking about over email was that like might be faulty memory, but we all sort of remember this movie having like a little bit of a cultural moment at the time, which is incredible in hindsight when you go back and watch it, because holy shit. But tell me a little bit about kind of the pedigree here.
Yeah, so The Lawnmower Man, 1992. Just to situate yourself, Wayne's World, Aladdin, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Alien 3. So a good film year, you
Are
might
you
say.
having a stroke, John?
No,
What's
no,
up?
I'm just giving you the cultural milieu that the Lawnmower Man is born in. So it's the Lawnmower Man is directed by this guy Brett Leonard. He's probably best known for this movie or potentially Virtuosity, which we can talk about as just like in my opinion, slightly better version of this movie. But yeah, it was originally from a script called, I saw it here. He and the producer, Gimel Everett, they had this original script that had been kicking around for a long time called Cyber God. So this thing gets optioned. They like start making it. It gets picked up by New Line. And at the time, New Line held the rights to a Stephen King story. And it's a short story. I think it's in Nightmares and Dreamscapes, but someone keep me honest on it. The short story by Stephen King, they held the rights. It was called The Lawnmower Man. There is almost zero connection between the film and the story, other than the fact that there is a character in both that mows people's lawns.
They also have an old rebuilt red lawnmower.
Yeah, fair. And the lawnmower at one point mows by itself, but for different reasons. We can come back to it. But so New Line had the rights to the story. Stephen King is like obviously very hot. It's the early 90s. So they just slapped Stephen King's name on it. And that, Eric, to your point, I mean, listen, I remember this thing as a Stephen King movie, literally up to when we saw this. And I was struck by the fact that nowhere on the film that we watched, the director's cut, in the credits, anything, do they mention Stephen King? Well, that's because Stephen King had to sue New Line to take his name off of the film. They actually disregarded the lawsuit and the court injunction and went out on home video with the title Stephen King's The Lawnmower Man. And only like after he sued them for a third time did they eventually remove his name from it. So it's got this like very crazy kind of like backstory. And that's before we even start talking about the actual film, which is itself crazy.
Yeah, just to throw out there too, if you are a patron in honor of Slack, there's been some discussion on this movie in the Big Show and the Random Nonsense and stuff, and there's been some a couple glimpses of a graphic novel of the original Stephen King story to prove how much it's totally not like this movie.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
I've read the old story. I mean, I've read a bunch of the King short stories way back in the day, and I remember reading it. I think after I'd seen this movie and just being like, "What the fuck
Sorry,
was
John.
going on?"
John, I was dealing with a dog for a second. Did you mention the lawsuit stuff?
Yes, I did. We got through the
Almost exclusively. The funny thing about this too is if you watch the trailer, I'm not sure if you can find an alternate trailer on YouTube, but if you watch the one on Amazon, it's like in the very beginning, it's like based on a story by, and then just really awkward audio silence. and then the rest of the trailer.
They
Like,
didn't
they
want to
couldn't
pay to
even-
cut another trailer.
Seriously, they couldn't recut the trailers. It's like, it's just-
Well,
it's
so let's talk
weird.
about this movie, John. And I wouldn't get, don't get, we'll get to the director's cut crap as we go along. Just kind of give me the nuts and bolts here.
Yeah, so The Lawnmower Man, starring Pierce Brosnan. Pierce Brosnan is a virtual reality researcher. He is working for a sort of like secret, shadowy government organization training chimpanzees. He's essentially making chimpanzees smarter by giving them injections and then training them in virtual reality to basically be like soldiers. I would say super soldiers, but one has to imagine that chimpanzees, no matter how smart they are, would be shittier soldiers than humans. I mean, that's
I
just
mean,
my.
they
Excuse
know how to
me.
shoot people and use key cards.
John-
so I wouldn't be too judgmental.
John, you will call him by his proper name, Cyboman.
Cyberman. I was gonna get to Cyberman.
Cyberman.
It's the
Hey,
worst.
Cyboman.
Yeah, so the film opens. He's doing research in this like weird government facility, and basically the first full sequence of the film is this chimp that he's doing research on escaping from the lab, killing at least one person, maybe two, and somehow getting like escaping away from this lab and ending up in the like hovel of the Lawnmower Man, played by Jeff Fahey. His name is Job, and Job is a simpleton. He's he's like I don't even know what the like appropriate way to talk about it anymore, but he's mentally handicapped. I mean, he's like of diminished mental capacity. He mows lawns. He lives on the property of the sort of like town church, and he is a ward of the church essentially. And so this chimpanzee gets into this guy's house. He's wearing this weird contraption on his head because he was just in virtual reality, and so Job starts calling him Cybo Man, and they have this very intimate relationship that forms over about 30 seconds. But
Oh.
Pierce Brosnan shows back up. The police
Which
show back.
which version did you watch, John?
Look, what Joe? Come on, were they not?
I
you know,
watched
very-
a version
very
that's
funny?
I watched a version that's 2 hours and 20 minutes long, Joe.
Yeah. So long story short, the chimp is killed by essentially put down by the government folks, and then
John, call him Cyboman.
Cyboman is put down. And
You call
Pierce
him by his
Brosnan-
name, damn it.
Pierce Brosnan is distraught because this was his life's work, basically making this super smart chimp. So instead, he decides he's going to start researching on Jeff Fahey's character Job, who turns out also mows his lawn. He takes care of like a lot of the lawns in the town. So he brings Job in, gives him some of the shots, puts him into the virtual reality, and he basically, if the chimp went from chimp to like infant toddler level human intelligence, Job
With a gun.
yeah, with a gun, Job becomes sort of like super intelligent, and it kind of happens like
Very
slowly at
sexy.
first. Yeah,
Very
yes,
sexy.
he does. He goes from looking like Jeff Daniels in Dumb and Dumber, like almost exactly, to I don't know, like
Romance novel. Full
Yeah,
on, like
romance
Fabio,
novel.
like,
But, like, with
Jeff
an-
Daniels in Dumb and Dumber, but in shape.
like with a bob too, like with like a really weird. It's got a weird.
the
haircut.
the sequence where he is at the gas station in like
dear
tight
God.
jeans is just the weirdest thing in this movie, maybe. But yeah, so he becomes super smart, and then it becomes this movie about how Pierce Brosnan can't control his creation. The government agency realizes he's super smart and wants to sort of like use him for evil. They start giving him injections that make him more violent or more aggressive. And it all goes to kind of hell in a handbasket at that point. I mean, once Cyberman is out of this thing, it's really downhill, in my
Yeah.
opinion. But
What my favorite thing about the director's cut is that he felt like, we need more of these scenes with this monkey in this helmet.
yeah.
They just the studio
From-
this,
It's the
from a
whiteboard
first-
that just says more Cybo.
the studio really messed with my vision here. We need more monkey.
The first person perspective of the monkey running around is just
Fucking beautiful.
Can you pull up, John? Did you mention the box office on this? Because didn't we say that it
Yeah.
actually did pretty well?
well. So
Yeah.
so they shot it for 10 mil. That's what's the listed budget on Wikipedia, and the box office is 32 mil, which at the time was like a pretty big movie.
For a weird sci-fi thing like this, and also so they made we sort of jogged our memories today or yesterday that they made a sequel to this starring Matt Frewer, and I was like, as soon as I saw the trailer, it came back to me. I don't know that I've seen it. I feel like I might have. The kid from this one is in it, and Matt Frewer plays Job. And the deal is that Job is now, because at the end of this movie, he ascends into the cyberverse, John, and then he's like a god there.
Spoilers.
He's like a god there in the second movie, and the kid's like, he's out of control. We gotta save him or some shit like that.
Well, episode over.
And then they go in.
I mean,
but that movie
didn't
looked
even-
like an even bigger budget than this thing, because there was like crazy stunts and stuff in that trailer.
yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen the sequel.
I don't
There's a
think I need to,
lot.
really.
I
There's a
haven't,
lot
but I
of
need
special
to.
effects. So the budget on the sequel is listed at 15 million, and the box office is listed at 2.4.
Whoa.
Ooh,
Ouch.
Ugh.
They're rough.
I get
So,
so
what also-
apparently.
when did the sequel come out? It was like
I think it was said 96.
yeah. So I mean, it was a few years later, and by that point, like we had all gotten over the whole like Aerosmith video with Alicia Silverstone.
It's
Like
true.
cyberspace was.
Some of
already
us never got
Speak
over
for your
it.
damn
Dude.
self, Joe.
Well,
You know what's hilarious?
But-
I don't know if it was this movie or what, but I listened to that whole Aerosmith album the other day at work. Maybe it was this movie subconsciously making me think of that video.
this movie brought back so many memories, and I cannot wait to get into them.
All right, well, let's jump into it here. Mark, this was your staff pick. Why don't you give us a little bit into why you did this, and then what your feelings were going back to it?
Man, so when we first floated the idea of this being my last show and me getting to pick the movie, my brain exploded with possibility. My first pick was going to be Freddy's Dead. So if you're a longtime listener, you might know that Freddy's Dead is actually the first horror movie that I ever saw, and I was kind of interested to revisit it. And then I remembered that like fucking Roseanne is in it, and like all of our Nightmare on Elm Street conversations end the same, which is that like they're not as good as we thought they were and whatever. So I kind of just saw how that conversation was going to go. And then I was just trying to think of movies that I saw when I was a kid and maybe saw again when I was a little bit older, but would just love to revisit. And for some reason, this movie just like popped in my head. And I had watched it probably maybe around 5 years ago. Sorry for just laughing.
You didn't want to just say you hate all of us and
No,
wanted
well,
to punish us.
I think that we do our best work when the movie is really bad. So I wanted to pick it was a couple of things, right? I know it was really bad, and actually we're joking about the chimp portion, but specifically in my head, that was the part that I was like, we have to talk about this movie. Like we could talk about that part for like an hour and a half. Little did I know the director's cut has like 400% more chimp in it than the cut that I last watched.
Did you? Oh, so you didn't see the director's cut last time?
Last time I did not see the director's
I
cut.
mean,
and
who
very-
on earth?
So like,
Who on
that's the
earth
interesting
would
thing.
voluntarily watch this director's cut? Seriously.
Yeah.
Well, but that's the thing is like you definitely get the feeling from watching it. Like anything that feels extra, you're like, this is definitely director's cut. And you guys are totally right that specifically in the very beginning of, and again, this is just like my memory of whatever 5 years ago. That there's the chimp is able to swipe the card and get out and also murders a person. But then I'm pretty sure they cut right to the chimp getting shot. There's no like him finding Lawnmower Man and like befriending him and whatever. Like a lot of that stuff is completely cut out. As far as my memory, someone can correct me on the internet, as people do. But yeah, overall, I just thought like we'd have a really fun time talking about this movie, even though it's really shitty. I do sort of half-heartedly apologize for the fact that the only way we could watch this was the director's cut, because I did not intend to subject everyone to like 2.5 hours of this or whatever it is. But on the other hand, I'm kind of glad we did, because I think it'll be fun.
Okay. Thank you. Cece, we weren't sure if you were going to show up tonight because you didn't respond to any of our emails, so we thought you had quit the show.
No.
Listen, I apologize for not answering any of your emails. I did read them, so
I guess
at
the, I
least
guess
they
our,
didn't
I guess
go
the question
completely
is
unanswered.
I guess
You're
the question is, did this movie break you?
Did it break me? Yes, because I told you I was halfway watching it while while Kyle was sick, and we started it with the YouTube version where you're watching it from someone else's house, and I was like, this is no. I'm like, I cannot watch this. So then I watched the director's cut, and I would like to think that had I seen it in '92, that I would have like really been into it, but I don't know what the hell was going on in this movie whatsoever. So yeah, I was just kind of along for the ride.
I feel like the only way you could be into this movie is if you're like 10.
Yeah, I mean,
And you
I
just
don't
don't, and you
know.
just
No,
don't know
I-
better.
Eric,
don't
it's
even
rated
know,
R.
yeah.
There's like straight up nudity in this movie.
John, when I was
Yeah, there
10,
is.
when
There's
I
very graphic cybo-sex in this movie.
cybo sex.
John, in '92, that did not matter.
Yeah, no, I watched. Yeah, I was watching R-rated movies at 10 years old. John, come on. Casey, how about you?
92 R-rated movies very much mattered because that was the year I graduated high school. I could legally get into the movie. No, I saw this one back in the day. I'd never seen the director's cut, so there's a lot of conversation in the emails about how, why we can kind of see why there was a director's cut and that, maybe why that stuff was cut out, and it kind of lives to it. But yeah, this movie's brings back so much nostalgia and everything like that. That was a big year for me, obviously. It's just funny, especially now that I've been working in IT for 22 years and seeing some of the stuff that they were pulling off back then, and having lived through that VR age and crap like that. It's just hilarious that how much of it didn't survive so much.
Do you have a 3D mouse at work, aka just hold your mouse up in the air and click it?
Yes, very much so. I've got one right here. See,
3D mouse.
Oh, God.
Virtual mouse. Amazing. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, it's worth mentioning too, like there really was this weird 90s VR moment which was weird because it was all theoretical. Like there may have been companies making prototypes and stuff, but like it wasn't like it is now where you can just like go to Best Buy now and just get like a PlayStation VR and it's legit amazing VR.
We can get into it, but like, did you guys ever play the thing in the mall where you would like stand in like a booth? This was basically, it was either like 92 or maybe like 94, 95.
Yeah.
It was like the shittiest VR you've ever seen, but they did have like.
I didn't have a rich
Yeah.
mall, John.
Well,
see, but we also, by the end of the 90s, though, probably by 99, like in Indianapolis, we had a huge arcade in downtown Indy at the main Circle Center Mall that had like a big BattleTech simulator that was all VR and shit.
yeah.
Yeah,
So-
but like I feel like to actual consumers that trickled down as shit like Virtual Boy.
Oh,
yeah.
Guys, well, hold on. We have a bona fide multimedia trained expert here. I would actually like to know.
We have a CD-ROMologist.
Joe, why don't you tell me about what you thought of this movie and its amazing
A
technology?
shaman of floppy disks.
So oddly enough, I have never actually seen this movie. This was the first time I watched it.
Whoa.
Mostly because like when I was 14 when this came out, and I was probably spending most of my time in my buddy's TV room where his computer was, like trying to actually make this happen.
Actually
with,
have cybosex?
yeah, like with local like bulletin boards and then like eventually AOL
question
accounts.
mark?
Yeah, like so I'd never seen this movie, but it definitely like kind of hit me in a sort of nostalgia part of my life. Like especially like Casey even mentioned over email, like when they're burning CDs, they have to put it in the CD tray, which was like one of the first like CD burners.
It was a caddy.
The
Joe,
caddy, yes.
After you watch this, did Leslie find you naked, covered in CDs?
That was my favorite when Mark emailed about the scene where the CDs are just shooting out of the machine.
So, I mean, like me and my buddy, we had they had this thing for the PC called the virtual guitar, which was like supposed to be like you were actually playing with Aerosmith. Like I was all about like everything that they pretty much show in this movie. Even when we went down to Disney World, they actually had the like VR setup that John's talking about. Like you could play that in this place that they used to have called Disney Quest, which was like a 5-story arcade. So I mean, as far as like the movie goes, like the acting is terrible. Like it's unreal to think that this was actually in the theaters and like people were going to see this thinking like this is amazing. But I mean, it was also 1992. Oddly enough, over the weekend, the wife and I watched The Dead Pit for the first time, which is the same director. And I think he made that like 4 or 5 years before. And it's funny because that's like a super low budget horror movie, but it doesn't seem like he really grew that much as a director. And in this, so I don't know. It's hard to look at it through the 2019 lens because obviously like the animation is terrible, like all the VR stuff is ridiculous, but it's still like if you have any sort of memories of this, like I feel like it really kind of hits like a nostalgia, especially for like nerds who were sitting in their parents' like TV room or basement, like online for.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
you know
Or
what
is
this?
it a
It's funny. You know this movie kind of made me think about Cam,
Hmm.
because in the sense that in the '90s, like it was Hollywood and the world was aware that like computing and this type of stuff in these virtual worlds, that was it was a thing that was happening and it was important and it was interesting, but they had absolutely no idea how to translate that to the screen, and that's how you end up with movies exactly like Hackers, which Hackers
Yeah.
is so much kind of in the same vein as this. You had this whole thread of these movies where they just invented these crazy 3D like user interfaces that never don't make any sense for starters,
No.
but never existed, still don't, right? But then you look how far we've come in a movie like Cam, where literally they make signing into a website the most intense thing you've ever seen, right? It's just really interesting, and you look like at how far we've come in the sense of like conveying these things to people. Part of it is that it's so much a part of our lives now, whereas it was still fairly exotic back then, which I think you kind of get from the way they're showing it to you here.
Also, there's a really awesome video on Wired. Shout out to the nerds. It's like 20 minutes long, and it's a dude, like a hacker dude, reviewing scenes from movies and TV where shit like this happens. So it's definitely worth a watch. I went back and watched it to see if they actually talked about Lawnmower Man, and unfortunately, they did not.
Also, Pierce Brosnan's computer is 100% just the TV that's sitting on a shelf. So.
Yeah.
Fun
And
fact:
it's powered by
actually
fucking
showed,
chest grease.
they actually showed Hackers at my college orientation.
Dude,
Oh,
can I be real with you right now, Joe?
hack the fucking planet, Joe.
Joe, I fucking love Hackers so much.
It's not bad.
It's
Yeah,
incredible.
it's fun.
I
John,
too unironically love that movie.
John Schnars,
yeah.
John Schnars, what do you think of this?
Yeah, so I had seen this at least once, and probably more than once. I mean, '92, like some of the rest of you, I was 10. This was like one of those movies that was like late night HBO fare in the sort of like early to mid '90s. I had never seen the director's cut, and it almost felt like watching a movie that I hadn't seen before, because it was disorienting, because I remembered a lot of it, but then there was just so much. It's about 38 minutes longer, I think. So there's so much more stuff going on. I know we'll get into it, but like it's almost unwatchable, I would say, this director's cut. I actually would be curious to go back and watch the original cut, because I don't remember it being quite this bad. and y'all were ripping.
It's
You were
fucking
ripping
so
the
bad.
acting like a lot over the email. Listen, I love Pierce Brosnan. I don't know what it is. Maybe I just have like an irrational response to Pierce Brosnan.
John was oddly defensive of like most of this
Go
movie.
ahead.
I love
Go ahead and
watching
take
him.
one guess to why you love Pierce Brosnan.
I love watching him try to make this material work. I'll give him that
Because
much.
yeah, I don't think it's his fault that he's
I
saying
mean,
insane shit.
It's okay, whatever. Go ahead.
He might have actually been like, guys, I'll say this, but I am taking my shirt off.
I think
I mean, this predated his Mrs. Doubtfire turnaround. You know, that really like took his career to the next
Well,
level.
it's a funny point, because like at that point I had only known, well, not only, but like Pierce Brosnan was like Remington Steele. I think this was before he was like James Bond,
this
but like
this had to be pre-Bond, right?
you knew him as like Remington Steele. He was like this cool like secret agent, like, and then you throw him in this like nerdy like computer guy, and you're like, what the fuck? Like he might possibly be like the worst pick for this like scientist role.
Well, I think he has this like weird accent, so maybe he'll sound smart, you know? Yeah, GoldenEye was 95, so
yeah.
Yeah, he's doing a bunch of TV work before this. Like this was in some ways like his break, and then to Mark's point, he's in Mrs.
No,
Doubtfire.
no. Have you ever seen Remington Steele?
Yeah,
Well,
no kidding.
It was huge.
Yeah, yeah.
No, it
In
really
any-
was. Like it was a giant thing. Like
Well, all right. In any event, I will defend Pierce Brosnan to my death. The Jeff Fahey character, like part of it is just the script is so freaking bad, and then they have Jeff Fahey playing this mentally handicapped person. It is the most absurd.
like simple
It's
Jack.
no, like
Yes.
we talked
It's
about it.
unbelievable.
If the makers of Tropic Thunder were not directly inspired by this portrayal, then I don't believe it, because if you go look, I'm pretty sure Ben Stiller has the same outfit on
yeah.
Oh,
in
yeah,
in
it has
in that
to
cut.
be.
Yeah.
I'll also go to bat for the actor Jeffrey Lewis, who plays the guy who runs his the lawn mowing company, who's
Oh,
the
yeah.
brother of the priest. basically, it's not
the
just that
most
the
stereotypical Irish accent like I've ever heard in my life.
so drunk at all times, driving around, mowing lawns. No, I mean, like, it's not just that the characters themselves are ridiculous. When they talk to each other, it is completely insane. And then you have, so I don't know, we've never really talked about this element of Stephen King on the show, but Stephen King in a lot of his writing has this whole concept of the shop. So in like Firestarter, the shop is like the like secret government agency that's like kind of like trying to take whatever the hell her name is. I'm gonna forget now. Drew Barrymore. So the shop is like a part of a lot of Stephen King stuff, and they basically pull that into this movie, and that is also completely absurd. So you have Dean Norris, who's now like a pretty
Oh,
recognizable guy.
Bro, Dean Norris's accent in this movie is unreal.
Well, first of all,
what
you
is
can't
it?
recognize him because like he's just this giant face on a screen that's like zoomed into like
Now,
pretty
wait a
much his
second.
nose and mouth.
Is Dean Norris supposed to be British in this movie, or is his accent just that bad?
No, I think it's
It's got
just
like a science
no,
accent. It's
yeah.
just a generic science
He
accent.
definitely is like hitting weird British tones at points, and I'm like, how could a British dude run the CIA?
It's the whole thing is just so bizarre. But it's not the CIA; it's the shop, essentially.
Isn't that what they're talking about, though?
No, well, at least in the like King lore.
Okay,
it's
so
not
that's
the
like
CIA,
a
it's
okay,
separate.
so that's like a King lore thing, basically.
Yeah,
It's the chimp syndicate.
The
yeah.
chimpicate.
Yeah, so-
Chipicate.
I don't know. Like the rest of you guys, I actually had fond memories of this movie, and watching it again, I was blown away how bad it was. Just at every turn. I don't know.
And
We
it's
can get it.
straight out of
Yeah,
dog shit.
Yeah, so like this movie is this is really funny. So first off, just to like address the director's cut thing,
You guys are like so deeply welcome.
this is
PPW.
hilarious. This is hilarious, Mark. I don't know if you listen to the show on the reg since you haven't been on like a ton lately, but like literally for the last 3 months, any movie is over 2 hours, and Joe and I fucking riot. Like it's been an increasingly
I
brought
mean,
up
I just know you guys well enough to know that about
brought
it.
up topic on
It's
the
the
show.
Nightbreed effect, we like to call it.
So Mark's like, yeah, let's do the Lawnmower Man. We're like, okay, cool. Let's see if it's streaming. And you go on Amazon, and the actual listing for the regular movie has no link, which is crazy. And like we talked, I almost wonder if it has something to do with like the legal stuff or whatever with
sure it
Stephen
does.
King. So that you start this first. So we look at it, and Mark's like, oh my god, it's 2 hours and 20 minutes long. And I was like, oh my god, are you fucking kidding me? So you read the thing, and the first thing you're greeted with is a title card that's like, this director's cut was made from a combination of like original composite footage and then like some other cut or something like that.
Like
You know,
hand sketches from the director.
yeah,
that
like
he's
please
like-
excuse like some of the choppy edits. Like it literally says something like that.
Some of
and
these
you-
are scanned napkins.
You can see it. They're like, so in other words, he definitely didn't have the original editing materials, because I noticed one particular scene more than once where you could tell like there was little stinger music that starts to come up before a cut, and then normally you'd cut to the shot and then you'd hear the music fade out, but literally he inserts his bullshit in the middle of it, so you hear this tiny bit of a stinger and then it cuts out when the next shot comes on. Like it's so like and it adds to the like surrealness of this movie. And it's like this movie has completely turned me against the idea of director's cuts. I don't care if you're Quentin fucking Tarantino.
This is it.
I
This
don't,
is
but
the
like
one.
what it is it distilled a thing for me that I've thought about for a long time, which is that, and John, we've been talking about this a lot with these Netflix movies, right? Like you need an editor, you need someone else in the process, because the thing is, when you're a director, I feel like each little creative flourish becomes like your baby, so to speak, and like what happens is you become too in love with that stuff and you can't see the forest for the trees. It's like you can't sacrifice
and, I
the
mean,
things
for this
that are
movie specifically, it's like there is so much inherent absurdity in the entire movie that if it were pared down a bit, it's like it's kind of fun.
You could
It's
swear.
dumb and it's fun, but this is what happens when someone's like, but I really wish everyone understood all of
Yes.
the things I was
Yeah,
going for.
exactly.
the
Like
romance between the chimp and
exactly. Like if you could, a short, breezy version of this movie is goofy fun.
Also, I'm pretty sure that sex scene was like at least 2 minutes longer in this version than
Well,
the other.
but like
It
every
was like, we
literally.
need more chimp shit. We need more virtual reality fucking, and whatever else.
You can
sort of
you can
stuff.
feel every one of these scenes that's too long, and it's like it's exactly that of just like this pretentious thing of this guy just be like, literally every time when scenes come on, all I could think was like, I can't imagine having a
Well,
conversation
and
with
some
this
of it
person.
too,
Yeah.
right? Like so much of his programming is these like weird, like basically like pentagram flashes in his face.
Yeah.
They show
Um,
that 15 times.
and it really does get to a point in this movie where like it it's like it's actually nauseating where
Like,
it's like
did anyone wonder how that was making him smarter? Like what the mechanic was?
I
of
was
these,
starting to
like,
get worried that like they
flashes?
were legitimately like giving me subliminal messages, and like now all of a sudden I want Coke or
also
something.
just like so much extraneous grunting, just a lot of fucking grunting in this movie because you're getting like
Eh,
shot with pentagrams in the face. It's like
Not enough grunting, I would
But
say.
s-
But
but
all right.
so that on its face, like it's just so bad in so many ways, and then the director's cut aspect of it makes it so much worse. Um, it is kind of amazingly kitschy. Like if you have any kind of
Oh.
nostalgia for that sort of weird retro 90s future stuff, like you kind of have to watch it, I feel like, because
Yeah.
there's so much of that stuff is amazing, and like it helps get you in the mindset of the kind of cultural moment in a lot of ways. I feel like Brosnan. Schnars is going to bat for Brosnan here, and I have no problem with him just generally as an actor, but he is on some meth in this movie. He is just the way he is delivering lines is so batshit crazy. I can't even describe it. His outfits are insane. At one point, he's literally wearing a really big.
He doesn't make the decisions about what he's wearing.
Whatever.
He
I
can,
don't
he
care.
can speak up and say
Yeah.
these shorts are way too short for me.
No,
Like,
at one
that's-
point he's wearing tiny short shorts, and then on top he's wearing this like a 2 sizes too big gray polo shirt with it like a 3 sizes too big gray sweatshirt on top of it. But the sweatshirt's so long you almost can't see where his shorts end.
I mean,
It's
this
like,
movie does
what?
have like a really weird like
my-
softcore porn undertone to it.
That's my favorite Hallmark movie, by the way, where shorts end.
But where short? This is what it sounds like. Where shorts end. But so the last thing I want to say is because John, this might surprise you. So I think Brosnan is just straight up hilariously awful in this movie, despite the simple Jack-esque nature of the slow character. I think that Jeff Fahey gives the most interesting performance, especially like if you look at the range though of what he's doing in this movie, and
Oh yeah.
like the transformation,
Wow, yeah.
the transformation,
Going here.
no, the
To go
transformation.
from simple Jack to
Yes.
porno boss
S-
is
I
Porno.
I think that by the time that he gets to the end, he is spouting hilariously terrible dialogue. But I think it's like fascinating. It's fun to watch. He's like fun to watch by the end of this movie.
Yeah,
Because-
no, I agree. It's fun to think about in retrospect, but when I was watching it, I was just like,
Like he
Yeah,
just
uh,
he's hamming it up in a really fucking
Oh my
fantastic
God.
way, and like the little accoutrements around it, where for some reason when he becomes really smart, he stops wearing a shirt and he's greased up all the time, and like he's got a fake tan on top of it.
He realizes what he's got going on underneath that underneath that shirt.
And I love
So-
that he sees like a Marlboro ad and he's like, I want to be a fucking cowboy. And he never like fully realizes his cowboyness. He just goes straight to like romance novel, like
No, he buys some cowboy boots. He gets the jeans.
I just think it's
he-
but it's
he's
really
got the
funny
belt
how it's
buckle.
really funny how that's the epitome of smart, cool sophistication to him is a fucking pair of cowboy boots.
It was 92. I do think it was really sweet that like that woman didn't just seduce him. Like they legitimately like had a relationship.
they had an
after.
arc. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see the scene where they got married, Joe. Did you see that?
Well, that's actually what I wanted to ask. Was like, I assume there's another director's cut where like they walk down the aisle before
They got Cybo married in Cybo State.
I mean, the
No.
other thing that upset me was in '92. Apparently, Simple Jack could be getting laid, and I still couldn't.
Joe, weren't you like 12 in '92?
14.
That's of age.
You know,
Yeah.
it's funny though.
Have
What's
awakenings.
amazing is that there's so much crap added back in, but it still doesn't make really much sense.
No.
There's a whole subplot with his wife where, and this is hilarious. It's like she's mad because he's always on his computer, basically, and she keeps nagging him about it. And you just think there's gonna be some
Typical.
Uh-huh.
it never comes full circle. And then at some point in the movie, she's just been like mind possessed by the Lawnmower Man, but you never saw it happen, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But
They
like,
didn't bother shooting that scene. They
for-
were like, nah, we'll leave this
for
in.
something
People
that
will figure it
they
out.
keep hitting
We gotta
over,
get back to the chimp.
they keep hitting over and over, and the shitty thing is like her character has no depth whatsoever. Every time you see her character, she's just like Wah, you're in the computer too much. Wah. And then it's
Yeah.
like that's the only place it goes.
Well, and her death scene, I mean, we're like jumping all over the place here. Her death scene is like a perfect epitome of exactly what you're describing, how like nonsensical and like batshit crazy this movie is. So basically just to set the scene, Pierce Brosnan is looking for Jeff Fahey because Jeff Fahey is now like able to like create pyrokinesis, like he's like can move shit with his mind, he can just do whatever he wants.
Turn people
He's
into
doing
bubbles.
Yeah.
mind murders.
Jeff Fahey is now in Pierce Brosnan's
Mind
house.
bullets.
So Pierce Brosnan finds him by going to his own house. He's possessed the wife, as you said, and the shop guys show up. And so he gives the wife, Jeff Fahey gives the wife a gun, which I'm not 100% clear where the gun came from. Maybe they showed that. I can't remember. But then sends her out. But when we to like basically confront these shop guys. But when we see it, it's as if it's happening in virtual reality, because like that, I guess, does Pierce Brosnan have this? I can't even remember if he has the mask on. The whole thing though just made no sense to me because Pierce Brosnan's like watching as if it's like he's watching as it's happening, but he's watching it in virtual reality, but it's actually happening in real life. Like I don't know. Did anyone connect the dot? Like that
I'm
was
gonna
like,
be
the level of
honest.
this movie just like not making any.
I'll be
goddamn
honest
sense.
with you.
Oh.
I just blacked out in the middle of that, Schnorrs.
Oh, the last 30 minutes, I was completely lost. Like, I have no idea. Like, they went to the lab, like, and I'm assuming what you're talking about actually happened during that period because I just no clue.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the funny thing is, like, this actual story, right, could have taken place in like a creep show short. It has that kind of like sci-fi Twilight Zone vibe, and so it really makes like this director's cut even more absurd because it's just like more opportunities to confuse the shit out of you, right?
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
it
this
just
totally like could have been like a Twilight Zone episode or like a Tales from the Crypt or something like that. Like, and it probably
Well,
would have been a lot better.
I'm
Yeah.
I'd also be curious to see what this is like for a person that doesn't have like the touchstone for the 90s nostalgia in this movie, because just like seeing the Lawnmower Man image in VR and all of this like really weird shitty 3D and they're like fucking and they turn into a dragonfly, like just all of
Well,
this shit
let's
is stuff that I have seen before because I'd seen this movie when I was younger. It was just kind of like burned in my head, and I have this weird sort of nostalgia about.
well, let's,
So I
let's-
mean, it's unwatchable to us, right? With some context, I cannot imagine anyone that like does not have that kind of
Well, let's,
reference point could
let's-
even think about it.
let's ask Cece.
I wasn't listening. I'm sorry.
Oh Lord.
I'm not even gonna lie.
Wow, man, I'm gonna miss you too.
I love you, Mark.
Oh
I'm
my
sorry.
You
God.
jerk.
I'm sorry. I was distracted by the group chat that Joe's telling me that he was gonna miss you and that I'm not a good replacement. So I
Yeah.
thought I would live up to that by not paying attention to what you were saying.
Well,
There's
no.
something
You're
about-
replacing Mark by Mark not being here and you not actually paying attention. So it's kind of like the same thing.
Well, Eric, also your thing. I don't know if you were just calling her out because it looked like she wasn't paying attention, but I'm pretty sure Cece and I are the same age, so I'm sure that
Yeah,
she.
no, I mean, I agree with you. Like, if you're talking about not having a touchstone for like the 90s, I mean, that's
Look
part
at you
of why.
quietly paying attention. You were.
Look, I can multitask, and I would just wanted to make sure that that's what you were referring to.
It was exactly what I was talking.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, we are the same age, so it's, I don't know. I think that I definitely don't remember anything about this
So
movie
weren't a
coming out.
massive fucking nerd in 1992 or 3 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think it has a lot to do with like your experiences back
Yeah.
then. Because like, I guarantee if Leslie watches with me, and you know, she's only like a couple of years younger, she would have a completely different experience than I
Right,
did because
yeah.
she had friends and went out and you know.
I
did stuff.
definitely think that makes a difference as to whether or not you can find something entertaining about this movie.
I mean, Joe, to your point, and Casey brought this up over email, but it's essentially, and like a lot of like sci-fi movies, it's like monster run amok. It's a Frankenstein story. Like
Oh yeah.
there was so much they could have shorthanded here, and they don't. And so like
You know what's
Uh,
weird though? Like what kind of threw me off was so Pierce Brosnan he seems like he really has like the chimps, like he doesn't want to exploit the chimp, even though I mean like he basically is. But you know he sort of painted in the beginning as the
no, he
semi-
genuinely cares.
semi-sympathetic
Mhm.
doctor, right? Like he's really upset when the chimp dies, and says probably the greatest line in the movie, which was, "He was the best chimp I've ever had."
That's the
Yeah.
best chimp I've ever had right there.
But like, but then
R.I.P.
he gets
Cybo Man.
he gets put on furlough, and he's like a little upset. I guess what I was missing was the thing that really drove him to the edge to make him want to experiment on Job. It's really just like he happens to see him and he's like, hey, you want to come here and get weird brain experiments? Like, there's no...
That guy's got the brain of a monkey. Why don't we just
yeah,
replace with
dude,
him?
totally.
that-
Like,
I
I
mean-
just felt like I was missing the journey that brought him there, because then suddenly to me, he's a non-sympathetic character because he just jumps right into experimenting on a human.
It's
Well,
it's
no, I mean,
ethically questionable for sure.
Right. But I mean, like John asked, I don't know if we were recording yet or not, but I mean, the biblical implications of this movie technically
We know you didn't, Cece.
didn't what? I don't even know what the hell you're talking about.
Just
I
say-
was
just
not
go.
listening to
Go.
you
Just
either.
ignore Joe.
The story of Job in the Christian Bible talks about how like Job had all this going for him, and then Satan came to God and was like, okay, well, the only reason he is a good servant to you is because you've given him everything. And so it kind of like it sets up the story of how God allows all this bad stuff to happen to Job to see whether or not he can still be a good person. So it's kind of a stretch of like Pierce Brosnan's character playing God by being like, okay, well, I'm going to see these things that are bad and I'm going to try and put it on a human and see how it turns out. And it's just really a God complex, but twisted into a like digital world.
I mean, there's some
But
real
at the root of
insane...
it, it's totally Dr. Frankenstein, though,
Right,
that John was
yeah,
saying, because
No.
Dr. Frankenstein's thing was the total disregard for humanity and whether he should do it or not. And Pierce Brosnan just kind of threw that to the side because he thought, I could do this. He never thought, should I do this?
Sure, but I think the fact that they named him Job seems to me like really on the nose. Like
Oh,
in
for
some
sure.
sense,
Sure.
like there's so much Jesus-y stuff in here. Like, isn't there a scene literally where one of the people he's attacking is like in virtual reality on a cross or something like that?
Yeah, well, he does that to Pierce Brosnan.
Right, and then he said,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, there you go." And then he says
Yeah.
like, "I saw God." At one point, right after the one like bad session goes bad, and then doesn't he? I swear, to God, doesn't he say like, "I saw a
Yeah,
cyber
yeah.
god" or something?
Doesn't
like
at
that?
one point like he say I'm God here or something like that?
Yeah,
Like, I
well,
thought that
that's
was-
at the end. He does like he. It's the first time he's put into the like super VR at the shop. Is like when he comes out and he's like, I think he says I saw Jesus. I can't remember, but yeah. Well, listen, we didn't even talk about the fact that he's living on the property of a church, and there's multiple scenes where the priest is basically just like straight up abusing him. Like
Yeah,
there's all
making him
kinds of,
flagellate
like,
himself
Yeah.
and stuff.
Yes, there's all kinds of weird like
I mean, this movie
stuff
is
going on there.
would have been a much better slasher, right? Because they like set up these characters, which obviously he like exacts his revenge. So I kind of think that's like an even better. Because
So-
him like, also we do need to take a moment to recognize the world's shittiest immolation scene.
Yeah,
in
when
the
he kills
church.
the priest, it's the
When
worst.
he's on fire, I'm just like, I was just
Oh
waiting
my
for them
God, yeah.
to cut to like an actual dummy on fire, but it was like hilarious. 1992, you're on fire. Grab
No,
it. Great.
Mark, like you actually made me remember something I wanted to bring up. Like about an hour and 20 minutes into this, maybe even like an hour and 40 minutes in. So there was a part of me where I was wondering, like, I remembered this being more of a quote unquote horror movie, and this director's cut basically undoes all of that because of all the crap that gets added in to the point that it doesn't feel like a horror movie right up until that scene you're talking about. So the priest is like the first person he kills, and that's like the first time that you're like, oh, I get it now. He's a monster and he's like killing people. There's only like 45 minutes left in the movie at that point. So it's just like
Yeah, that's true. Like if you don't have the
There's
context,
only 45 minutes
Well,
left.
no, I
Because-
know but
because-
I'm saying, like, it's
because
such
we're all
a
aware of it.
fucking
Like you
movie.
kind of know that's where he's going, but you're right though. If you don't know that's where it's going, it takes forever to get there. Like he's
Yeah.
really just kind of having a cool life.
Well, it's so
Yeah.
schmaltzy too. We haven't even talked, like literally there's whole portions of this movie we haven't even brought up. The kid who lives next door, who's like his best friend because, the kid's like 9 and loves comic books and he's a simple guy. So he like hangs, it's just that character becomes like super pivotal to the end of the film. It's just,
But the
and-
kid is such a weird afterthought though in some ways too. Like he just kind of pops up when the story needs him there, you know?
Well, sure. But that's what I'm saying. Like
That's it.
he
There
is,
are
he's-
so many characters in this movie that the
Yeah.
movie can't really do any of them like as you can see, there had to be a way to like slim down the roster in this movie. I feel.
Also, man, the '90s when you could just send your kid to your shirtless next door neighbor's house to play games.
His creepy basement.
Basically,
Well, like that's what
basically blindfolded, face down in a chair. What the
the
fuck?
first 40 minutes of this movie read like a very special Different Strokes episode or something.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Pierce Brosnan is legit out front and is like, "Hey Billy, do you like video games? Do you want to come in my basement?" Like that's
And that's right after the kid was being beat by his dad
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
public.
Well, you know what? Just fucking drunk ass Pierce Brosnan is
Because
in his
there's-
basement playing video
there's
games.
a
Is better
thread-
than an abusive.
There's a thread that
Mhm.
must have been dropped somewhere too, where the kid's mom was like flirting with Brosnan, like was all like.
Well,
up
they
in-
get spoiler alert. They kind of get together in the end
Yeah.
Well,
you just
and-
ruined the entire movie, Mark.
because he's like, I let my child in your basement, and he's still alive, so that's good.
I have to.
Yeah.
I do have to
Let's be
comment.
together now.
One of my favorite things is that for some reason all of these medical facilities are like insanely underlit. I actually liked it. So like in my memory this was a 90s movie, but then watching it I was like, no, this feels and looks just like an 80s. It feels like an 80s B movie, which is kind of amazing, which makes sense. Like 92, 93, right? You're still in that transition for like visually and creatively and stuff. But like I loved this. Too many movies nowadays, I feel like horror movies are overly lit and lose atmosphere because of it. We talked about this when we did Tales from the Dark Side too. Like every segment looked like a soap opera or something because it was just weirdly overlit. Like, listen, man, don't be afraid to do what this movie did. Turn the lights down, put a fog machine on, like. But it's hilarious
Eric-
because you're in a theoretical science lab. There's no lights. Like, there's a candle in the corner.
Eric,
The
can I
irony
blow?
of this-
Let me blow your mind really quick, Eric. The cinematographer of this film, Russell Carpenter, Academy Award winner for best cinematography on the film Titanic.
Amazing.
Holy balls.
I love Titanic.
So there you go.
You know,
Paint
the
me like one of your
ironically-
French girls, Jim.
one of the things that like really suffers in this movie because the graphics are like so shitty and outdated is that, you know, there's this big like showdown kind of at the end that happens in VR that is just like fucking hilarious because it's so stupid looking. But like, and this is meant to be maybe more of kind of like a science fiction, like Twilight Zone-esque movie. But one of the most tense scenes was the one, however silly it was to me, one of the most tense scenes was the one in the hotel where like they're, you know, the like nameless suit guys from the corporation are coming for Pierce Brosnan, and he's like, you know, he's trying to like rent a car, and it's like going really
That's-
slow.
I mean,
So it's
because
like they try so hard to create tension in virtual reality, and it's like they kind of just had a
Well, no, the tension is when he has to wait for the dot matrix
Yes,
printer.
yeah.
yeah, that is
Right,
the
when-
only scene, Mark, that has like true like classical tension built in.
Right. And it's like the dumbest scene still.
Let's see your credit card. Forget it.
I
I
had
got to
this-
do like the fucking chalk rubbing of the credit card.
You know
and
what's
the-
you know what's really funny though too when you talk about like technology and just how far we've come since this movie. There's a scene where he's mind controlling the lawnmower and it's mowing the lawn, which is just hilarious. He's got his eye, he's just like staring at it. And I
a
just
fucking
thought,
terrible job mowing
but
the
I
lawn.
just thought
Doesn't-
like
Oh,
I just thought today,
Still half job.
like in 2018, getting a lawnmower to automatically mow the lawn is like nothing. Like that's doable. Like those things exist. Like I have a Roomba. You know what I mean? Like
There is
that-
like a Roomba
what he's
lawnmower,
doing
Yeah,
today,
yeah,
well,
for
like
sure.
what he's doing today isn't even magic, I guess is my point. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what's funny
Right.
about it.
Yeah, but I bet you today's don't fucking scalp the lawn like he did.
and today's
Lord.
are just like a spinning wheel of blades that is like completely
Oh my-
open.
there's a
like that,
li-
you know,
there's a li-
once all of the blood moved to his pecs, he lost the part of his brain that knew anything about.
Dude, the one
wow.
the one lawnmower kill where the lawnmower legitimately turns into a slasher killer is the fucking greatest thing I've ever seen. It
Yeah.
bursts
Funny.
it bursts into the house and starts chewing up the
Who
floor.
rips up
Yeah.
the whole fucking living room in the funniest, slowest way imaginable.
I didn't understand, because at that point he could get into people's minds, and like I forget who it is, but like he's the tough guy from the gas
Yeah.
station, like he scrambles that guy's brain without actually like doing anything. But then for the father, like he decides that he's gonna make this weird lawnmower like attack the entire house.
He makes it jump and
Yeah.
kill him. He makes the
Oh, that
lawnmower
part-
jump into the air.
That part's incredible.
No, John, it hits a ramp.
Oh. there was a ramp.
Yeah.
Why was there like where did the ramp come
There
Are
from?
was
you
no ramp.
are you
I,
sure?
no, I think there was like chaos ensued and a little ramp.
No, it
happened, and
looked-
was
it-
easy
no,
to,
it
like,
looked-
Everybody
He had time
skateboarded.
to build a ramp with his mind.
No, I'm pretty sure it like popped a wheelie and took off.
There you go. I think that's.
I guess
I
we're gonna
think
have
that's
to
what
rewatch
happened.
That
the
would be my
entire
vote.
thing and figure out-
Sometimes ramps happen.
yeah, accidental ramps.
How do they work?
R.I.P. Cybo Man.
It took me 2 nights to get through this thing, man. It was brutal, and I still fell
Wait,
asleep.
okay, here's a question: did anyone watch this in one sitting?
No.
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 No, yeah, definitely.
No, literally none. Is that might be a first? That literally none of us.
Sunday
watched it.
Sunday night, I
sitting.
just kept saying to my wife, I was like, okay, I have to get at least an hour and 20 minutes into this because I can't have more to watch tomorrow night. Like I have to clear the hour mark left.
Like I would feel like I'd watch this for 3 hours and then I would look and there was still like 15 minutes left. Like 50. Like I don't understand how, like no matter how long I watched this, there was still 50 minutes left.
In 2019, this movie only has like historical value. Truly, there's no real
Oh, yeah.
value to actually watching it as a movie. I don't think.
Historical value and just like kitsch value. Like if you just really like 90s kitsch, then this
Also,
is...
if you like greasy fucking chest hair, I mean, there's at least 10 minutes of content here.
I couldn't get over the smoking. It's just so disgusting. Like he's
Yeah.
smoking constantly in this movie.
I agree, yeah. Especially that bedroom scene. I'm with you. Like that. You know what? I'm done with you, Pierce Bronson.
He's just lying in bed and he lights up. I was like,
How
God damn.
dare you?
That'd been a really interesting movie with like him and the chimp. You could get like Brundle Pierce. It'd be like a Fly remake, like a really.
I'm just
sexy-
always fascinated by that, like smoking in movies because of how much culturally it's changed. Like people still smoke sometimes in movies, but it's just different. Like the way it was just it's done then.
Well,
is
now it's like to like signal something. In these movies, it was just like these people just.
it's
fucking-
right. It's a
Yeah,
non.
just
It's
a
a
habit.
it's a non-thought. It's just something the character does. But like, you know, like somebody's in their office smoking in a movie from the 90s. You're just like, holy shit, what kind of world are we living in, man? The idea that we accepted that as a society, Schnorrs, is insane
Oh,
to me.
it was. You go back and watch movies from like the 50s and shit. That I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's.
Oh, the babies were smoking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane. All right, guys, we got to wrap here. But before we do that, Mark, one final time here in the show, why don't you please grace us with a movie guide?
Shut the fuck up. You shut up. You gotta shut up.
Mark,
Did we lose Mark?
you gonna unmute,
Mark
bro?
muted again.
Dude, perfect. I muted.
It's just
You're
like
right on
just
time.
like old times.
Just like all times. If you're new and you have not seen me on the show, made a fine tradition of reading entries from movieguide.org, which is a Christian-leaning website that has these hilarious like stream of consciousness reviews of movies. So if you're worried you might catch something a little saucy, like if you're Mike Pence, you look at movieguide.org and it'll tell you whether or not you should watch a movie. So, Lawnmower Man, the features at least 20 obscenities and 8 profanities, extensive violence, whipping, beating, striking, shoot, kill, injuries, property destruction, man set on fire, man shoots self, men disintegrated. Oh, we didn't even fucking talk about that. I need to talk about that for a second.
Oh my god.
Mind control and invasion, 2 scenes of graphic sexual intercourse. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Brief upper female nudity and rear nudity with women in underwear. New age phenomena and worldview. Several instances of drinking and drug usage, and a cruel priest with distorted theology. Now,
How
I
many
thought
times do
that
you
like
think
his.
they watched the movie to write that though?
right, a couple things. One, this like disintegrated thing, they say disintegrated. It actually means turned into hundreds of little tiny balls, which was hilarious.
That
And you-
swirl
dude,
around and like
The
sort of
director,
hang
100% added more of that shit back in this movie because those scenes go on way too long.
You know what?
Yeah,
every
but are you
human
sure-
being fears the most? Being turned into hundreds of shiny balls.
Are you sure it's the bubble treatment or it was Job deflating in his Tron suit?
Mm.
Oh, that was
That was
kind of sweet actually.
yeah, that was actually kind of an. I mean, that was like one of the only like real effects. Another thing, this is a very, very egregious missed opportunity to mention upper male nudity because there is a lot of upper male nudity.
Do they
This
mention
might actually be like upper male nudity, the movie.
do they mention the cybo goo or was that just in the director's cut?
No, so they say graphic sexual intercourse, and there's a lot of subtext here, a lot of which is just like cyber madness, virtual
Well,
reality.
I should point out so we have this
goo
we
and
have
stickiness and
we have this
merging.
we have this picture here. You full on see his cyber sack, I guess you might call it.
Cyber sack.
Yeah, like if you look at it.
What are you talking? What website are you telling?
Somebody
What
said.
picture are you looking at?
Look, I just put it in the chat. Look at what's
yeah,
going
okay.
on in his business there.
All right.
Oh yeah,
stand
no,
by.
that's definitely a cyber sack.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is.
Confirmed. Cybersack. 100%.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Okay.
100%.
Glad we solved that.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah,
Mark.
Also, they completely missed the crucifixion, which I feel like should have earned an automatic mention.
Yeah.
In the
But
guide,
again, it's hard to tell how much of this stuff isn't in the cut they saw too.
That's a good point too.
Fair. They do not mention Cyberman even once.
We should write in and tell them they're missing a real opportunity here.
Please, there's a lot of really hardy sexual activity you need to witness.
Hardy.
So that's it. That's movieguide.org.
Great. Would you recommend this movie, Mark?
Probably not.
Joe?
I'm gonna go yes.
Cece?
Probably not.
Casey?
I'd say the theatrical cut.
Yes. John Schnars?
I second Casey. If you can get the theatrical cut, yes.
Yeah, I
I
feel
don't
like
think you can. Like I looked everywhere. Like I even tried to find like Best Buy to see if they had it, so I didn't have to watch this whole thing. I don't think it exists anymore.
it's so bizarre. That's so bizarre. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I think if you listen to this and you
What
know,
a cruel joke to play on the public.
if you listen to this and you know you're into like a certain type of '90s cheesiness, it might be worth just like experiencing it once. I think so.
Yes,
go.
if you're as old as me, it'll be worth it.
All right, guys. That'll do it for the Lawnmower Man. Let's take a quick review and do some fan mail.
Welcome to a brand new nightmare.
Great to be back in business.
The final nightmare.
It's your mind will go for it.
I won't tell.
This is my favorite.
It's gotta be me and him. We're gonna have to hit him with everything we've got. Cool.
Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare. They saved the best for last. Rated R. Starts Friday, September 13th at a theater near you.
Greetings, gentle folk. This is James Duval from Donnie Darko, May, and Sushi Girl, and you are listening to BloodyGoodHorror.com.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back. Hadn't actually planned that, Mark. I had just already pulled the trailer for Freddy's Dead because it's fucking awesome.
And also relevant to this movie, Freddy's Dead includes a really bad video game scene.
Oh yeah.
You can probably Google.
I mean,
I'm guessing.
I just want to take the opportunity just to say, it's awesome. That movie is amazing, and I love it.
I know, like I kind of wish we had done it, but I'm glad we did.
No, this is pretty special.
I want you guys to just have terrible memories of me. I really just want to.
Oh, we've got him, John. Or
Yeah,
Mark.
you don't have to worry about that.
This
All right.
movie had nothing to do with it.
Info@bloodygoodhorror.com is the email address. No emails tonight. Mark, you want to take us home with some tweets?
Holy Hackfire, I sure do. So we use two hashtags that I'm sure everyone can handle in my absence, but because I'm here, the first one is Ask BGH. So if you have questions, actually, you know what? Fuck it, let's do BGH Classics. The first one is BGH Classics. If you are a patron of our wonderful podcast, patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror, and you're listening to a back episode and hear something dumb or silly or funny, tweet it to us with the hashtag BGH Classics. Try and cram the episode number in there if you can, and we'll read it. This first one comes from That Baseball Joe. It says, Sophie said, I think you're confusing me with Joe, which happens all the time. And Joe said, I get it. We're white, we're blonde, we're super Aryan, and kind of frowned upon right now.
Yeah.
Still very true.
That was episode 438, Annabelle Creation.
That movie sucked.
Wasn't great.
Great. Next one from Flora Doohan. Doohan, Doohan. Eric said, I'd love to see a real gritty, legit war movie with zombies in it. This was World War Z episode 195. And Flora said, it took him 7 years, but we finally got it.
Yeah. Overlord. Yeah.
And still haven't seen it, but it sounds like I would be
You
very into it.
gotta see it. It's real good.
Yeah.
There you go. Last one is from our good friend Monica, Mi Corazon Mi Amor. This was a quote from Schnars about John Carpenter. I like basically everything that he touches. I especially like it when he touches certain things. That was from episode 147, Prince of Darkness.
Oh, man.
Oh,
I must have
Prince
been drinking during that episode.
Man, that was a fun show, Prince of Darkness. That was such a good movie. We had Erin on that show, and she was like schooling us in like theoretical physics.
Erin.
Yeah.
That's fun. All right. We also use the hashtag AskBGH. You have a question and you want to ask it? Ask BGH, and maybe we'll answer it. Maybe we won't. This first one's from Bit O'Brien. Sorry, this is important. Bit O'Brien, whose display name is Friendly Gaberhood Daddy Man, which is relevant to this tweet. My question is, how is it possible that Joe can even remotely think we would not want to see him on webcam porn? The sexy time comedy possibilities are endless. And then there's a gif of gold coins raining from the sky.
Oh, that makes me feel pretty. I appreciate that.
All right. Next one is from Chromosomed. Here's a question I probably should have sent you guys ahead of time, but I can't wait to see what your answers are. If you lost your hand/fingers to a lawnmower, what would you replace it with? Personally, I'd have a USB drive index finger and a bottle opener as my middle finger built into a prosthetic hand.
That's very specific.
Yeah.
He clearly has thought about this
Yeah.
a fair bit.
Yeah.
Any answers?
I don't know. I'd just probably go with like metal fingers because you could then like just grab pots that were real hot all the time. I don't know.
like a robot finger situation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the boring answer, but I think
Wait,
it makes
wouldn't you
a lot
want
of sense.
rubber fingers so they did not conduct the heat from the pot?
John wants potholder hands.
just they made out of cloth.
Just an oven mitt. That's easy, guys. I don't know.
Just an oven
John
mitt.
doesn't take his own pots out of the oven.
Just an oven mitt duct tape to his stumps.
Oh, Lord.
Man.
I'm not comfortable giving my answer. I mean, we're all thinking it, right? Like fleshlight. Like that's what.
Yes,
Joe,
that's definitely what
Joe,
we're
that is
thinking.
so impractical 99% of the time.
But that 1%.
But that 1% is
It's
right
totally
on.
worth it.
Much like John, Eric, I like to think of myself as the 1%.
Fair.
Oh man, Joe. I don't even know how I follow that, so I'm not even gonna try to. Next one is from Bit O'Brien. Oh, this is probably the most recent classic we've ever had. The sexual tension between Eric and Schnars during the Bird Box Netflix box office debate in BG Horror episode 504 was the sexiest thing I've heard so far in 2019. Ask BGH, will 2019 be the year of aardvarking between these two beings?
It was. I'm not gonna lie.
Or
It was,
between
it was,
these two begins?
I'm not gonna lie.
Wait,
It was like old times. It was great.
Yeah.
I'm old. What is aardvarking?
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same thing, but thanks.
Oh my
Casey.
God, I can't wait to look this up. Hold on.
It's just doing stuff. It's just sex stuff.
Just
no,
doing
I don't
stuff?
think so.
No, because I want
No,
to.
there's somebody. Who is it?
Oh,
It's just,
nope,
it's just
sorry.
sex stuff.
Oh, you know who
CC.
says it? You know who
Nope.
says it? Joe Bob Brick says it. That's why it's in his brain.
CC, cover your ears. This is from Urban Dictionary. The top definition is when two men touch their penises together tip to tip, and one man rolls the foreskin of his penis over the penis of the other man.
That's
What?
That's
Oh my God.
It is necessary that one man is uncircumcised.
Well, okay.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with aardvarks, though?
Hashtag aardvark, hashtag foreskin, hashtag space docking, hashtag aardvark, hashtag gay,
Okay.
hashtag sword fight.
Okay, so in that case, no, I cannot promise that will not happen in 2019.
John?
Let's
move
go
on.
ahead and say that there's a lot of very sexual explicit definitions of aardvarking on Urban Dictionary, and they're all different.
Can John and Eric perform any of them?
Like right now?
John and I have to talk off screen. I have questions.
There's another one which, like, I kind of want to go out in a blaze of glory, but I'm not gonna read. I will just say, Google aardvarking and check out Urban Dictionary.
For those of you not watching the live stream, Cece looks like she just drank bad milk right now. The look on her face.
I mean, I'm just impressed that this conversation has gone on so long. I appreciate it. Just
Next one.
sexually liberated men here.
That's right.
We like to learn things.
All right, Cece, this is a question directly for you. Next one is from Chris Allenut, perhaps. 2 questions. One, has Cece ever read the Stephen King story? And if so, could she attest to how bonkers it is that the movie came theoretically from that script?
I have not read the original, but I was reading about what the original story is. And yeah, I mean, they talk about like the original story from Stephen King mentions like the Pan or a god, the god Pan, excuse me, and like a bunch of other really bizarre things. Like Casey said earlier, the only thing that this movie has that overlaps is a red lawnmower and someone who mows lawns.
Yeah, it's the original story. I think it's like 4 pages long.
Yeah,
it's super duper short.
Yeah, what I was reading says it's really short.
It's told from the perspective of the person whose lawn is being mowed.
Yeah.
And he's basically just like watching this dude walk behind a lawnmower or like crawl behind it, and he's like eating the stuff that comes out of the lawnmower.
Yeah, and then that guy gets sacrificed.
He's naked, yes. And then he gets killed.
Crazy town.
So there's killing too.
Yeah, that's true. That happens. But not chopped
So
up.
there's nudity.
No, well, and just to be clear, we talked about it at the beginning, but like it didn't have anything to do with the script. Like when they wrote the script, they weren't thinking about the story. So they were thinking about hot VR sexiness.
They just wanted an excuse to have VR sex.
VR when his like wife or girlfriend or whatever she is like walks down and literally like the opening scene and she's like, so what's next? Like having sex with this thing? And like immediately like, oh, he's gonna have sex with this thing.
The light bulb goes off in his head.
Yes, that's where all VR roads lead.
Oh, gee, I never thought about fucking it before. Second question: what would the BGH Crew CGI nightmare world?
I put that quote in the movie box. Oh, gee.
Oh shit!
That was on the poster, I think, when this movie.
The second question in that same tweet: what would the BGH Crew's CGI nightmare worlds look like?
This.
Ooh.
Got him.
Like a Windows 98 screensaver.
Yes, but it like glitches. For it to continuously glitch
Right.
would drive me crazy.
You get stuck in the pipes, the pipe screensaver.
It's just like a virtual reality of a living room where this movie's playing, but it's like the other director's cut that's also like 40 minutes longer for some reason.
Next one is from That Baseball Joe. Did Joe create the virtual reality in this for his final exam for multimedia?
It's not far. I have no idea why I did this, but in 3D Studio Max, it was one of my finals. It was a barn in the middle of a desert with a clown for some reason.
My
and
God.
it just like sat around. It looked exactly like some of the 3D.
Joe, we've met you. We know the reason. It's
All right. I have a lot of questions. One, can you still access and view this?
If somebody has a CD-ROM drive, yeah, absolutely.
My God. We need a video capture of this on our YouTube. Okay, next one is from ShineMaster9000. Favorite horror comedies, movies like Zombieland, What We Do in the Shadows, Army of Darkness. I had a pretty good time watching Club Dread this weekend, which is a bad movie with some funny moments and got me wondering what other movies like this I could watch. I would say Tucker and Dale versus Evil is a great movie.
That's a good one.
Hell Baby.
Dead and Breakfast.
Yeah, Hell Baby was actually good too.
Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah,
And Cabin in the Woods.
I mean, Dead Alive, if we want to go. I don't know if it's a little different, but
You guys, Dead and Breakfast has line dancing zombies.
I've never seen it. I've never even heard of that movie.
It's good stuff.
It's
got Jeremy's sister.
If you're like feeling 90s, Freaked is a good.
I don't know if I
not really the
call
same
it.
vein. It's just kind of like a 90s like weird.
what was the name of that other? Oh, well, Black Sheep. I'm trying to think now. I'm just thinking of
you know what I'll throw out there?
Aussie/New Zealand movies because they're all fucking crazy.
As long as
also
we're
a great normal comedy in its own right.
as long as we're in the 90s, I will throw out Idle Hands.
Oh, I used to. Oh, that's a good one.
Very 90s, aggressively.
Mm. Seth
Come on,
Green.
Devin Sawa.
Devin
Like,
Sawa,
how can you
yeah.
not?
That's so good.
All right, simmer down.
What Starbucks is he working at now?
With
Where
his
can we
like
go meet him?
butt cut, haircut, no thanks.
Devin Sawa and Jessica Alba.
And Jessica Alba.
Oh, Eric just like throws that in.
No,
Like,
just,
Jessica Alba, someone you may have heard of.
I'm just saying, there's something for everybody.
Something for you specifically. Next one is from Joe's Poor Liver. Why do you hate me?
Wait. I saw someone on Slack was talking about like making a Twitter account for my liver. Hey, you did that.
Joe. So Joe's Poor Liver has not tweeted since 2012.
Wow.
Wait,
Their
this
last
is
tweet was, even if you're the least bit happy with your life, please know I fucking hate you. Jesus, Joe's liver.
Wow.
did they just change their display name or something?
Joe's liver has 73 followers.
I just followed it today.
Joe, I am gonna follow it right now.
Yeah,
oh,
so-
I was already following it. I
Is it
unfollowed
just
and
wait,
followed again.
wait? Is it just at Joe's liver?
It's Joe's Poor Liver. My favorite part about this is that Eric, you're already following Joe's liver. Also retweeted a tweet from someone that said, "Hey, Robert Pattinson, Bela Lugosi thinks you're a giant pussy." That's kind of funny. My favorite part of this entire account is that the location is listed as Joe's abdomen.
Do I follow this? I'm curious. now.
Inside Joe's tum tum.
Love it.
How's your liver feeling?
Jesus. All right. Sorry, guys. I know we're running late. I'm going to try and power through these tweets. There is still a bunch of them left. So, whew, okay.
Buckle up.
Next one, I guess, from Bruno the Weber. Anyway, what would be the sound of your individual birth cries?
Oh, what?
What the
Birth
fuck?
cries?
Is that a reference to something? Because that is
What's
obscene.
a birth cry?
I don't even know how to answer.
Mine would be a long fart. Next one, Stovall Cody 42. Some critiques of the Us trailer, weird no one complained about the use of jump scare music when it didn't match. Will Peel's shtick with derpy smiles, voices, and running like the victims in Get Out be repetitive? Also, do you think the young girl is the mom in the past?
First of all, I don't want to speculate on potential plot points because why would I do that? I don't know. I just think that, dude, he has all of the goodwill in the world, so I don't think it makes a lot of sense to try to like be like nitpicky about the trailer. Like, just if you really liked Get Out, go see this and see if it's good.
I'm fully prepared to just wait and see what he delivers.
I don't think it for him now at this point. It makes a lot of sense to like armchair quarterback.
I'm just stoked at his choice to use I've Got 5 on it.
Yeah, big fan.
I mean, in the trailer for Get Out, you're like, oh, this looks kind of cool. And the movie was just fucking incredible. So it's like, you can't really watch the trailer and be like, well, I got this all figured out, guys.
What's her name from Mad Men's in it, though, right? The Scientologist?
Yeah.
Not a fan of that, to be honest.
Her or silent?
Both. I mean, both. The fact that she is a Scientologist and
You got that, Cece?
No.
Sweet. All right, next one is from Fuji Billy. Hey guys, what's the firing order on a 4-bolt main small block Chevy V8 with a 2-piece main seal? Is it 184365572?
Get out of here, bro. Get out of here with that shit.
What a jackass. Get him out of here.
Boo this man. Next one. Bruno the Weber, who was asked like 5 questions this week. Hey guys, I watched the movie on VHS when I was a kid and remember getting a little freaked out with the CGI. Here in Brazil, it's called Passenger from the Future, which makes no sense.
What? That's
really
awesome.
That's
Passenger
fucking
for the
awesome.
future.
I love that. Poster, it didn't happen. Next one, also from Bruno the Weber. Anyway, for a long time, I thought that Jeff Fahey was the kid who played Bastion in Neverending Story Part 2. But when I saw him years later on Lost, I said, hey, it's a kid from Neverending Story. Then I learned that kid killed himself at Palmer. Jesus Christ.
Wow. That's a dark ending.
Wow,
Roller coaster of emotions with that one.
One last round Burgundy to set me off into the sunset. Should have screened that one. Next one, Stovall Cordy 42. So you guys don't care about It Chapter 2 snubbed twice and you look forward to 2019 talks. No, it's fine. Sad face.
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
I'm pretty
Since you
interested
called
to
it,
see
no, I'm not.
I mean, I'm
John
looking.
and I mentioned it.
I'm looking forward to it. I wasn't like I thought that it was really good. I wasn't necessarily so blown away by it or that invested in the story that I'm like, the cast does look pretty amazing, but Also, we haven't seen a trailer for it yet, so it's hard to be that pumped for it. I feel like.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about the show in general is that like we're gonna watch shit anyways, right? So like, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. There's
The
no.
spec- the
don't be
speculation.
us, Mark.
Well,
Well,
we are,
Be
Mark.
us.
You guys are gonna watch shit anyway, so the speculation is
Yeah,
it's
it doesn't. Yeah, like, and especially, and that's kind of my point, I guess, about the Us trailer. We don't really gain anything by over analyzing these things beforehand because we're gonna see them. We know that, so it's better. I feel like you're better off just going in clean and taking it for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Mark.
Worse. We done it again. That's it for the tweets.
That was all the tweets. Oh, all right.
Eric, you want to play that music or?
It's cool.
Hey.
I actually have nowhere else to be. So we can-
Mark, thank you for now taking up 6.5 hours of my time this week.
Oh, you're goddamn welcome.
We will of course miss you, and I would like to say, if there's a movie coming out that you really want to talk about, you are always welcome.
Oh, thank you.
And of course,
God bless.
for people at home, Mark will be in the Slack. So if you're a patron at the Belial level and up, I believe, Schnars, you can hop into Slack and you can talk to Mark literally every day if you want. So he's not going
Always on
anywhere.
Twitter at MarkBGH. You can find me on the internet pushing weird buttons that are popping out from the walls in virtual reality.
Direct
John
message Mark on
actually,
Slack. He loves that.
John actually asked me to delete Mark's Slack account like 5 minutes into the show. So.
Oh, shoot. Ooh, shoot.
And next week, I think we're going theatrical, Schnars.
Yeah, escape room. We're gonna go back a week in time and pick it up.
So there you go. It's going to do it, guys, for The Lawnmower Man. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you soon.
Adios. Oh, you killed it.
Mark, you go last. You gotta go last.
Okay, I'll go last again.
Oh my god.
See you.
Bye.
Mark, I love you so much.
Bye-bye.